Last Sunday, I went to visit my parents after Mass. They presently are living in an assisted living community, and so what I do is I stand in the parking lot outside. They're up on the third floor of the community, and I call them on the phone, and they come to the window, and they wave. You know, we talk on the phone. It's sort of like a papal audience, you know, when they appear. But it's a good way to communicate, you know, given the present restrictions that we are under. So last Sunday, it was a beautiful day, and I'm chatting with my parents, and I noticed as I was doing so, an elderly gentleman who was walking outside. There were actually a number of people kind of appropriately walking, keeping the correct distance and so on. And this elderly man, he was probably in his mid-80s or so, went to a first floor window. And it's a particular area of the community for folks who are struggling with dementia-related matters. And this gentleman knocked on the window, once again, on the first floor. And although I could not see the person, as it turned out to be his wife on the other side, he started talking to her through the window. And he was saying things that were really just so beautiful. Mary, this is Bill. How are you? I love you. Have you watched TV today? How are you feeling? I love you. This is Bill. You know, and this really was sort of the conversation that went on for, you know, maybe 20 minutes or so. And throughout, you know, this older man, this husband, you know, maybe of a marriage of, you know, 60 years or something, you know, had a smile on his face. And he was speaking in such a loving way to his wife. And, you know, to be honest, I don't really know if she ever recognized, you know, who he was. But I'm sure that she was lifted up by his words of love, encouragement, and support. Recognition is at the very heart of this beautiful gospel passage that we have heard of the road to Emmaus. Luke's magnificent account of the risen Christ appearing to those disciples. At the heart of the gospel is this movement from sadness to joy, from despair to hope, from a lack of understanding to recognition. Luke sets the scene for us in such a magnificent way. It's late in the day, and the two disciples have left Jerusalem. They're returning home when this mysterious stranger appears and walks with them. And this mysterious stranger engages them in conversation. What are you discussing as you walk along the way? And they look to him, not knowing who he is. You know, asking the question, don't you know what's gone on these past few days? Clearly, these two disciples are filled with sadness. You know, they had lost hope. They were discouraged. They were disillusioned. We had hoped that he would be the one. You know, I think these are one of the saddest scenes, really, in all of the New Testament. These disciples had left Jerusalem, and they had left discipleship. Jesus, the risen Christ, the one who was walking with them, did not tell them who he was, but rather he revealed himself to them. You know, just as St. Peter said in the first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, you know, God revealed himself to us in Jesus. He worked through him, says St. Peter. And again, in today's second reading, St. Peter tells us that God revealed himself through Christ, because it is Christ who is that unblemished, spotless lamb. So here is Jesus now, the risen Christ, on the road to Emmaus. He first prepares those two disciples by explaining the scriptures to them. And then he reveals himself to them in the breaking of the bread. Just as he fed the 5,000, and most importantly, how he gave his very self at the Last Supper. Jesus, in the breaking of the bread, shows those disciples who he really is, that he is risen. With that, their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. My brothers and sisters, just as that faithful, elderly gentleman, that husband, was knocking on the window for his wife, so too, our loving and faithful God is knocking on the window of our hearts, on the window of our souls. He wants to reveal himself to us. We may not recognize him, not for cognitive reasons, but because, first of all, in many ways, our culture has spiritual amnesia. Particularly when things are going well, which they had been for many, particularly in the West, when we're blessed in so many ways, it's easy to forget God. When things are going fine in our lives, the temptation is to kind of put the Lord, safely away. But perhaps now, it may be our anxiety or our struggles or our difficulties or our worries that may be keeping us from seeing God's presence. We can become trapped by those anxieties and concerns. But our faithful God, the risen Jesus, continues to walk with us, to walk by our side, and to reveal himself to us. He shows us his face through the experiences of our lives. He shows us his presence through the people in our lives. He gives us of himself, his friendship and his grace, through the joys of our lives and through our crosses and struggles as well. And most importantly, he gives us himself in the breaking of the bread, the most holy Eucharist. We encounter the same risen Christ who showed himself to his disciples on the road to Emmaus, on this holy altar, in this beautiful shrine, the same Jesus, the same risen Christ. He is here. At this moment in time, we unite ourselves with him spiritually. In some day, we pray soon, we can receive him, body and blood, soul and divinity, into our very hearts. My friends, just like that faithful husband who spoke words of love, encouragement, and support to his wife, so Jesus speaks those words to us as well. I am with you always until the end